What's up, everybody? Do you sometimes feel like life is just random chance? Like these crazy things just keep happening, you have no control over? Well, you're in luck because today's episode, we're going to be talking about how to embrace randomness. This is the Existential Stoic
Woo!
podcast. I'm Randy. That's Danny. What's going on, Danny?
What's up, Randy?
Danny, do you sometimes feel like, you know, random things just happen?
You when you were doing the introduction, I was just thinking about this. I actually, yes, I do, and I always feel this way, especially like you ever like ask yourself, like, "Oh, I shouldn't have done that," but then you start thinking about it. You're like, "Well, if I didn't do that, then this wouldn't have happened, and that wouldn't have happened, and that thing wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have met that person." And like, so even something horrible can, in effect, have like a good outcome or a positive side to it. And it's like that has always like convinced me of randomness because it's like you can never tell like the myriad of connections and causalities that are playing out. You never know like which ones you're gonna like find valuable or not. And it's like it's totally random sometimes feeling like even if you didn't even consciously make a choice.
That's a great point. You can't connect the dots looking forward. So you just got to trust that it's all working for
So
your
it's like all
betterment.
random all the time.
Yeah. Well,
Yes.
I remember in the meditations, Marcus Aurelius was saying it's either all random chance or it's divine providence. But either way, you have no control. So just like
It makes
do
no
the best you
difference.
can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, either way, you can't control anything outside of us. So what the hell's the difference?
Yeah.
Just go with it. Yeah.
Bingo. So, but
Yeah.
despite that, today's episode, we're each going to give three
Or in spite
recommendations
of it.
for how to embrace randomness. So I'll go first. My first one is say when things happen, just say, "Oh, how can I make the most of this?" So like most people, when something happens, particularly something they don't want, instead of asking how, they always ask why. Why did this happen to me?
Yeah.
Why is my life so difficult? Why this? Why that? Instead of that, say, how can I make the most of this? How can I turn this into my advantage? And then you get your brain working because you got the biggest supercomputer between your ears. And if you get that working to your advantage, figuring out ways to get around it, you'll use it much more to your advantage.
I actually really like that one too, because I think that's one of the biggest dangers when we are in a bad mood, have a negative attitude, depressed, is we look for meaning. We cling for meaning, and especially meaning that justifies our current position. And it's always negative. It's always why me, why this, why did that have to exist? Why is that outside force doing this to me, whatever? And instead flipping that and asking what you can do is like empowering, and it's the only way I think to get yourself out of it. So I think that is a crucial one. It's a really good one, and it's simple because it's just asking yourself a different question. It's rephrasing it, right? It's looking at it from a different perspective, like everything in the world.
Yep.
Uh, I like that. My first one is I was thinking of Taoism and the concept of Wu Wei, or the action of no action or inaction, and particularly the idea that this suggests of like that we should move, with, not against the natural sort of current or flow of nature or existence. And I like this because this always reminds me too when things seem really random or seem really just like whatever is happening, that like we just sometimes also have to just go with it and not be too resistant or not be too, not try and force our way, because by doing that, we tend to make more problems for ourselves sometimes.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a good one. When you were talking about that, I was thinking about the saying, "All of man's problems come from his inability to sit still and do nothing." So,
Yeah.
like, some random thing happens, we don't like it, and then we're just struggling all the way upstream, causing all these other problems. When if we would just go with it, things might be a bit easier.
Uh, yeah. And to that point too, like when we push against it too, we have a tendency to do things also without really thinking them through or knowing the consequences, which can also make it worse, right? Instead of kind of seeing how things play out a bit and then kind of doing what we can within that framework or within that area.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my next one is when these random things happen to you, whatever it is that happens, just be like, "Ooh, this is good." So it's just priming your brain because the way we think about something really dictates how it actually happens. So I heard this kind of about when you wake up in the morning, just like throw your arms in the air and be like, "Oh, today's going to be a great day." And it really does kind of change your mentality about things because whether it's going to be good or bad, who's to know? And really, it all comes down to your interpretation of the events that happen. So just choosing initially with these random things, "Ooh, this is good," and then just acting based upon that, and you'll probably have that happen.
It's funny. So much of the things that like we can do to help ourselves is really just about like reinterpreting, flipping our perspective. Because the truth is like it's all just us looking for a way to explain things, make sense of them. And I think you're right. Even lying to ourselves or trying to convince ourselves rather of something being the case, like, oh, today's gonna be a great day. It does work because sometimes that all it takes is saying it, right? Or reminding yourself that that's still a possibility, that you're the one that creates the meaning, not the meaning's not fixed or given to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you want proof of it, look at people in your life. Like there's very clearly one person I met when I was in vet school, and literally like the sun just shone everywhere she went. And it was very clearly because her attitude was always, this is going to be great. And then I look at
Yeah.
somebody else who everything is terrible in their life, and it's very clearly because their attitude is, this is terrible. So they're always looking for that prophecy to be fulfilled, and they always find it.
They're always self-fulfilling, right? Whatever your attitude is, you will make the world that way, regardless of how the world already is. So it's like, keep that in mind and try and be positive. I think that's a really good one. My next one actually really is actually very nicely related to that, which is, and we already mentioned Marcus Aurelius, but that dichotomy of control. So when things do seem really random or out of control or overwhelming, focus on what's in your control. It's a great way, I think, to ground yourself. So asking questions that are empowering, that focus on what you can do, thinking about, what is and what's not in your control. So what about this is outside of my ability to actually exercise control? Is it the environment, society, other people? Well, those things I might not be able to control, but I can control myself, how I think about things, what I'm doing, my skill set, my response to things. And I think by doing that, we really do stay intentional, and we keep ourselves acting in a way that's more in line with our values and virtues, I think, which is really important.
Yeah, you can definitely see people who are kind of moving forward in life as opposed to those people who are stuck or moving backwards by how much responsibility they take in terms of their life.
Yeah.
And the people who focus on what's in their control and improving that, they're the ones who are always getting ahead.
Yeah.
Which brings me to the last one. So if everything is randomness, if you're going to have, you would hope based on a coin flip where 50-50 good and bad, but it could be worse than that. But like, if everything is random and you want more good experiences, then just get in more reps, like do more. They say if you want to, succeed faster, fail faster. And so it's the same type of thing where like, if you want good things to happen to you, you just got to have more of these incidents. So then you can have more of the good things that you're looking for.
I really like that one too, because it's like keeping your mindset focused on just doing sometimes can be so helpful too, because instead of like wallowing, instead of being depressed, instead of becoming a victim, you just keep going. You're like, I just more of this, whatever it is, please. And eventually, something good will come of it. Right.
Yeah.
And
Like
I think that's great too, because you never know how it's going to be interpreted later.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I'm reminded of this motivational speaker, Les Brown. He talks about how he was a door-to-door salesman growing up. And it's like punishing because people just slam the door in your face nonstop. But he had the mentality, he's like, I know there's a yes out there somewhere. And every no is getting me closer to that yes. And so just getting in more reps. So he would just knock on the next door, knock on the next door, knock on the next door. And he's like, after a few weeks, I stopped taking it personally when they said no. But
yeah. No, it's good though too, because eventually too, I like that mentality too, because the more stuff you're doing too, eventually something's going to stick, and you're going to get better at it. You're developing stuff throughout that process, so it is positive for you anyway. I like that one. My last one, I think too, actually fits with that nicely, which is, and ask yourself, how often does freaking out really improve things? And what I mean by this is like when things seem really random, when they seem overwhelming, if your impulse is to say, why me, why this, and get depressed or angry or mad or anxious or whatever, just ask yourself that question. How often does doing this help? Has it actually improved my situation? Has it made things better? Has it made me capable of getting beyond this or overcoming it? And the answer is never. It always is never. And it doesn't mean that you'll quickly get out of it. Because I think I do this with myself all the time. But it is kind of like a funny kind of like way to remind ourselves and laugh at ourselves and just be like, we're kind of ridiculous sometimes and dramatic and drama, prone and everything, and I think it helps to kind of keep that in check.
Yes, it reminds me of that thing you were saying. How often does getting angry
Yeah.
work out? And it just doesn't. So yeah, those are great 6 quick fixes for how to embrace randomness. Because if it is all divine providence or random chance, then now we kind of know how to react to it. So that is
Yeah.
all for today's episode, the quick fix of the Existential Stoic podcast. This is episode 160 episodes already. Wow. And still going
Woo.
strong. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, share with friends. Check us out on YouTube and the podcasting services. We will catch you guys later. I'll see you later, Danny.
Later, Randy.